Did Donald Trump just use the attacks in Iran to pressure the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates to bail out his economic policies? Well, the markets have reacted because the markets believe that now Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve central banker, will have no choice but to lower interest rates in light of the instability, worldwide instability created by Israel and the United States and its attacks on Iran and what it's going to do to the oil market. And therefore, the market has reacted. I'm trying not to be crass about this, but the market has reacted as if they know something, as if they believe that Donald Trump's attacks were really an attack and a pressure campaign, not on Iran, but on the Federal Reserve to get them to lower the interest rates, to have cheap money and free money to bail out Donald Trump's policies. That would explain many of the things that we're watching. I'm Michael Popok. You're in Legal AF. Let's start explaining. Let's put the pieces together in a logical sequence. Now there's reporting coming out of CNN in which they now believe that the United States at best has set back the nuclear program just a couple of months, just 3 months, to which the press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, all she could say about that is, A, that was top secret, and B, it's false and it was leaked to harm President Trump. Well, which is it? Is it top secret or is it false? It can't be both. I mean, is that what they got going on in the Trump administration? Top secret information, classified information that's filled with false data? That would explain how they're governing. So you got Carolyn Levitt saying that it's false, that their nuclear capabilities have only been set back several months. Of course, the Israelis aren't going to adopt that because they want the world to believe that their attacks in Iran have obliterated, Donald Trump's phrase, obliterated the nuclear capacity of Iran to justify their attack on Iran. Now, Donald Trump has thrown out and thrown away because he doesn't trust his own intelligence community, certainly doesn't trust Tulsi Gabbard, doesn't trust the CIA, his own CIA, and is instead relying on Israel. But was this entire quote unquote 12-day war that's not even over, despite Donald Trump declaring a ceasefire, was it all done for two reasons having nothing to do with national security? Putting lives at risk. 40,000 troops are within harm's way of Iran. That's not counting the millions that are at risk if Iran executes on a plan of terrorism against the United States and its interest. People have died. Israelis have died. Others have died. We risked the lives of crews on stealth bombers on a 37-hour flight plan to drop from B-2 bombers 50,000 feet up down a shaft, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of munitions. Was that all done to make Donald Trump into a wartime president, to salvage his legacy, and, back to the economy, to pressure the Federal Reserve to lower rates to keep the stock market artificially high? Stock market certainly acts that way. I've been around brokers and traders for a fair portion of my life on Wall Street. I will tell you that they are calculating SOBs. They are heartless. They are bloodless. They are only concerned with the bottom line and their financial positions and their stakes. And they have already started to calculate because we've seen it in, this would explain why the stock market is on the rise again. Not because they're thumbs upping Donald Trump's exquisite military operation or the ceasefire of the 12-day war. Nobody believes that. The Israelis don't even believe there's a ceasefire. Neither do the Iranians. And Donald Trump's all-cap missives, cut it out, knock it off, or dropping the F-bomb on the lawn of the Rose Garden on the way out to the NATO summit, saying, basically defaming and demeaning the Israelis as allies. That only proves the point. That only proves the point. Did Donald Trump do this also on his way into the NATO summit in order to justify demanding from NATO that they increase their military spending? The timing seems very suspect, right? And so Since the new reporting is coming out, quickly denied, which means it's probably true, it's likely true by the Trump administration, that they've only set back the nuclear capabilities of Iran several months, you have to look to these alternate explanations. Follow the money. Look at the stock market. Look at the pressure on the Federal Reserve Chairman. Look at Donald Trump's desire to get interest rates as low as possible. And the market believing that this will lead to that because of an impact on the oil market. Because if oil gets tied up through the Strait of Hormuz, 20% of the oil supply comes through there, it will ground to a halt the world economy, leading to doubling or tripling of the cost of barrels of oil, which affects food prices, prices at the pump, prices for clothing, merchandise, retail, construction, and the like. Doesn't that seem to be a better explanation for what we just watched than we did all of this and started a shooting war with Iran effectively between the US and Iran in order to buy another 90 days? How is that possible? Well, I've explained that on other hot takes. It's possible because it's not just those 3 locations that we hit that have the nuclear capacity for Iran. As of this recording, once again, we do not know 11 days into the war where the 418 kilograms of enriched plutonium, the stockpile of weapons-grade plutonium is for Iran. You can put it in 16 canisters. They look like your hot water heater in your house if you have an old-timey hot water heater. There were, Marco Rubio said, well, they couldn't have been trucked away. The Secretary of State, they couldn't have been trucked away before we bombed. That would be terrible. The Israelis would have shot it down. Well, the Israelis didn't fire a shot until they fired a shot. And before they attacked Iran, there is satellite imagery of trucks moving their way out of Natanz and Fordo and Isfahan, those 3 sites for the Iranians. And so if they took their toys home, right? They took their ball and went home with all their enriched uranium, and they took with them just a fair amount of high-speed centrifuges to continue to enrich. They're back in the game. They're back in the game. They don't need levels and levels and levels of centrifuges. Take their stockpile, finish the enrichment. They already have missiles that they can plug this into, which are easily built, or Russia can supply them. And they got 10 nuclear weapons. And where would they put them? Well, in places not named Natanz, Isfahan, or Fordo. In fact, as I've talked about in the past, recently, there is a 4th secret location. Not so secret because I get to talk about it here on this hot take, but it's in a place we call Pickaxe Mountain. Double the depth of Fordo. So you know how hard it was for us to just set them back 90 days by dropping a dozen bunker buster bombs at like $10 million a piece down a shaft or down a hole that we made, one after another? Well, that was at a location that we believed was about 330 feet below the surface. So take like a 20-story building in New York and turn it upside down, that depth. Pickaxe, 660 feet, double. So now take a 40, 50-story building and put it down. Take the Empire State Building almost, or half, or most of it. Shove it down, and that's where we have to hit. That's where centrifuges can still be located. That's why I believe, it's hard for me to say this, but I believe the Iranians more than I believe the President of the United States, who's an addled moron, when they say they'll be back up and running within months. And the more that Carolyn Levitt denies it by saying it was top secret, it was top secret, and it was false. Which is it? Which is it? Every time I hear them talk, it reminds me of that famous old movie by Stanley Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove, and in which George C. Scott, who's the crazy general in the Situation Room or the War Room, when the president, played by Peter Sellers, decides to let in the Russian counterpart into the Situation Room because they got a situation. They got a war room problem, right? They got nuclear bombs on their way to Russia by accident. And George C. Scott says, you can't let him in. You can't. He'll see the big map. That reminds me of Carolyn Levitt. The big map. We can't let him see it. It's top secret. Yeah. There is no dispute that Donald Trump does not believe his own intelligence community. Tulsi Gabbard is on her way out. She wasn't even in the Situation Room when the decisions to bomb were made. She hasn't been in there since. At best, John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, is the head spook, the head spy master for America. When I saw the photo, which we'll put up here, when Donald Trump announced the bombings, I looked at this and I said, there's no intelligence here. I mean, literally, there was nobody from the intelligence community. I know what you thought I meant. There's nobody from the intelligence community standing with Donald Trump. It's the vice president. It's the general. It's the Marco Rubio. I'm like, where is the intelligence community? Absent. Donald Trump would rather rely on Israel because his ultimate goal is to change the weather around his administration and its failings and become a wartime president, to try to bolster his standing and give him even more power. Netanyahu wants to do the same thing. That explains why we just sacrificed so much and undermined our national security in order to set back the nuclear plans of Iran by 90 days. I'll continue to follow it all right here on Legal AF. I'm glad you're here. Hit the free subscribe button. And then to come over to our Legal AF Substack, where I have all these legal filings and other analysis posted. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.